My name is Rachel Dungan. I have been working in pharmacy for over 20 years in Ireland and started out in Trinity and went on to do hospital pharmacy masters, starting in James's and then in the Mater Hospital. And really that inspired my passion for continuing professional development. And it's been something that's been very, very part of my life for the last 20 years. Really learning, but also how can we apply it in practice to make the biggest benefit to our patients within our workplace and for our whole profession. So that's part of my reason for doing this. And so when the Institute of Pharmacy was founded, I applied to become a peer support pharmacist. There are 37 of us, and our role in the Institute is really to be, among other things, to share the concept of CPD in the Irish context with our entire profession, and also provide feedback back from the profession to inform the work of the Institute of Pharmacy. So that's the journey thus far. And I think our experience as peer support pharmacists, we've been running these live events for the past 3 years. And obviously I had over 500 pharmacists attend the webinars over the last 6 months of 2016. So initially trepidation, fear, worry, concern. What does this mean for me? How will I fit it into my day? How will I use the computer system? Will what I'm doing be good enough? So how it came to be was back in 2007, the Pharmacy Act was enacted. It brought the 1875 Act, Pharmacy Act, up to the 21st century and completely skipped the 20th century. But anyway, that is the foundational piece of legislation for our profession in Ireland. And part of that incorporated what the rules would be regarding continuing professional development. So founded in the Act, there was regulations brought in at the end of 2015. They're CPD rules is what they're commonly called. And that brought into law the certain aspects of CPD regulation for pharmacists. And that also put into law the role of the Institute of Pharmacy. So that is a professional body for pharmacists that was founded based on the regulations. So it is a regulatory and founded under statute by the PSI, but it is operating at arm's length from the PSI. So that means that in actual fact, the Institute of Pharmacy is contracted to the Royal College of Surgeons, the RCSI in Ireland, who run the Institute of Pharmacy on behalf of the PSI. Well, there's 3 pillars. The primary, and underneath all of those pillars is really how can we as pharmacists, no matter what branch of the profession we practice in, how can we support patient safety? Remember, code of conduct, health, welfare, care and safety of our patients. So the Institute of Pharmacy's role is no different. It's supporting us to fulfill that first aspect of our code of conduct using 3 pillars specifically. First is obviously the CPD system itself, running that system. Secondly, research. And thirdly is leadership, professional leadership within the pharmacy profession. So they're the 3 pillars which support patient safety ultimately. So in 2016, the first cohort of people were called for ePortfolio review. And those people submitted their cycles for ePortfolio review in January when the window was open. So they would have done a number of cycles in 2016, as we all need to have done. So all of us have a statutory obligation When we've signed this, when we signed our PSI registration at the end of, whenever we did in 2016, we signed that we're using the ePortfolio. We signed that we are up to date and complying with all of that aspect of the legislation. So to continue our registration, we are using it. And we have an obligation to use it on a continuing basis throughout our careers. So when we're called for review, some people have got lucky. They got called in 2016 and they have direct and personal experience of what this process is like. For the rest of us, we're left imagining a little bit what it could be like, but we will find out in the next 4 years because we'll each be called every 5 years. And when we are called, we will we'll be expected to demonstrate engagement for the previous 5 years. So if we're called in 2020, for example, we can expect that we will be requested to submit examples of CPD cycles we have completed in 2016, 17, 18, 19 and 20. No. So and this is a really, really good thing.
Right.
Because the standards that are set for peer review, the ePortfolio review standards, those are set by peers. They're not set by academics. They're not set by the IIOP. They're not set by the PSI. They are set by pharmacists, the length and breadth of the country, male and female, from all age ranges, from all practice areas, who have to obviously bear in mind the legal requirements, but absolutely what is practical for a pharmacist to do to demonstrate a minimum standard of engagement with CPD. Now, obviously, that was done for 2016.
Yes.
And to be fair to all of us, they need to get the feedback from our peers doing that, going through the real live process of this first review, get that information back before they set the standards for 2017. They're likely to be in July time. Now, I don't know that for sure, but if based on last year, that would be expected because the ePortfolio review process won't end until May. So here is the process. People were called for review in July 2016, invited by the PSI. Those people will then have gone through a process to make sure that they were available to be reviewed, and if they had extenuating circumstances, they could have put those extenuating circumstances to the PSI. Once the final list was clarified, the PSI gave the PSI numbers to the IIOP to handle it.
Okay, so
from there.
The PSI selects.
The PSI selects random selection of pharmacists from the register. Mm-hmm. They do their computer, spits out numbers, and the PSI selects those. Then once they've got the final list, they hand those numbers over to the Institute of Pharmacy, who then support those pharmacists to fulfill their requirements. So there's two aspects to the review. The first are automated standards, which are up on the Institute of Pharmacy website, and you can check them all off individually to make sure that you've met the standard before you even submit. So you have complete control over meeting those automated standards as a pharmacist. So that's fine. You make sure they're all ticked off, and then you press the submit button. So that's the first. You know you've met the automated standards.
So there's an automated review.
There's an automated review standard. So that is based on the boxes that you tick underneath each of the sections of the CPD cycles. The 5 stages of the CPD cycle are the self-appraisal stage. What do I want to learn and why? Mm-hmm. The second stage is the personal plan. How do I plan to actually learn this thing that I say I want to learn? The third is what did I actually do? So there may be the same or different based on what emerged. And I know we've had conversations in the past about, oh, I thought this project was this size, but actually when I got into it, it turned into something a lot bigger than I anticipated.
Yes.
Or it was a lot faster than I anticipated. So that's what you actually do.
Right.
The fourth stage is document what you actually learnt. Now, this is not a transcription of the PowerPoint slides that you learnt at an amazing lecture or whatever. It's just your key points. What's most important here that I have learned. In that document your learning section, you can put supporting documents in. You can just upload. If you want to upload the PowerPoint presentation, you can upload it there. You don't have to transcribe it all. All you need to do is put your 3 or 4 key points. Out of all of this, these are the nuggets. So that could be a knowledge, facts that you've learned. It could be skills that you've developed.
Okay.
It could be a change or shift in attitude or perception that you've see things differently now, having gone through this learning. So, or it could be a behavior that you're doing differently now. So stage 5 is evaluate the impact on practice. And this is very important. This is what's different now.
Right.
As a result of learning that knowledge, that skill, shifting that attitude or changing my behavior, how is that making a difference in my pharmacy practice, if at all? So sometimes the learning is, thought this would make a difference and it has and it's worse. Or it's made no difference. Or thirdly, it's made a big difference. And here is how I now engage differently with patients. And this is what a patient came back and told me. Or this is how I am now organising the dispensary as a result of that learning. And it has saved me 20 minutes of time per day, which I now use to write up my e-portfolio. That's the whole point. Why am I doing this learning? How is it making me a better pharmacist? How is it making me add additional value to the people with whom I engage? Be that my staff, be that my peers, be that my other healthcare professionals, be that patients, be that their carers. Whatever the practice is that you're in, how is it making a difference? So the automated review standards are just that. They're automated. It is a computer reading them. And what the computer is reading is how you've ticked the boxes underneath the free text boxes.
Right.
So in the first stage, the self-appraisal stage, there are questions underneath. How did you identify your learning need? And you tick how you identified it. Maybe it was a conversation with a pharmacist. Maybe you went to a CPD event and in conversation you found out something you didn't know and you went off and investigated it. Or you went to a continuing education program, whatever. Whatever your methods were, engagement with another healthcare professional, a patient question, whatever. You tick those boxes, as many as apply. So ideally, we use different styles and different methods to identify our learning need over time. Over time. So then underneath the second one, it's like, how do I plan to learn this? You could tick that you plan to do an IPU Academy, attend an IPU Academy event. You could tick that you plan to phone some particular pharmacist. You plan to raise it with your superintendent pharmacist and find out if there's an SOP or there's a protocol or request training, whatever your method is. You may do some research, you may read a paper, anything. No. You can come back and I will show you, and when we go into my own e-portfolio, you will see where some of them I've completed in one setting or one sitting, and others which I've taken have been over several months because the project started and evolved over a number of months. So for example, developing the Supporting Mental Health and Pharmacy Practice CPD program that's on the IIOP website now, going through from applying for the contract to get that program to actually getting it through accreditation to delivering those programs live and online was 18 months. So They can be 2 minutes in length, or they can be big projects. I think the key actually is relevance.
To your specific practice.
To your practice. What will make you an even better pharmacist? What will help you to future-proof your career? And this is a wonderful tool when we embrace it to actually capture that learning and really assess, is this adding value or is it just interesting? Interesting is good, but interesting is not enough. So you can really look at, am I only doing stuff that's interesting to me, or actually is it helping me to add more and more value and becoming more and more valuable as a professional? So the CPD, the ePortfolio, my understanding is that is the structure that we are going to use to record our CPD. So it's that cycle, as I said, self-appraisal, plan, action, document what you've actually learnt, and that evaluation piece. So that framework is likely to remain the same. It is in statute. We must use the ePortfolio to record it. We can't get pens and papers. We can't use other systems. We can't go off and decide in Ireland, if we're registered in Ireland, the system we must use to record our CPD is this ePortfolio. Just to come back to the boxes underneath the action phase, there's 2 questions in the action phase. What did you actually learn? What was the structure of the learning that you did? So was it accredited, structured but not accredited, or on the job? And then what resources did you actually use? Now many of those are similar to the ones listed in the planning section, but this is ticking the boxes what you actually did. Okay, now those 3 sections: accredited learning, structured learning, and on-the-job learning. It's a wonderful, wonderful gift that we have in pharmacy in Ireland to be able to have flexibility to whatever way we learn it, whether we dream it at night and we get an insight that great, you can write that up as a CPD cycle and it's valid. So the accredited learning includes learning such as the programs that are on the IIOP website. So for example, the vaccination training would be an accredited program. The supporting mental health and pharmacy practice would be an accredited program. And any of those that are there, they're accredited. But it isn't limited to what the IIOP accredits. And this is very important. Again, is this relevant for my pharmacy practice? Maybe an IIOP course is not the most relevant. Maybe one that's engaged in communication skills. Or maybe you are doing, you're transitioning from being a support pharmacist to a supervising pharmacist. Or maybe you're going from a supervising to a superintendent pharmacist. And in addition to the programs that are very pharmacy related to the legal requirements, etc., you want to develop your managerial skills, or you want to develop your leadership skills, or you want to develop your management skills in some way. And you decide how you're going, what will suit you best. Maybe going to a course in Dublin on one night a week will be the structure that you want, and you choose to do that with the Irish Management Institute, which, for example, would be an accredited program. Maybe you choose to do an online program. So there's a variety of different options online. The Institute of Pharmacy have online programs. The IPU Academy record their live sessions as an online version on the ipuacademy.ie. So that's another option. And then, for example, you've attended the webinars that I've done with CPD sponsored by PharmaConnects.
That's right.
The IPU or the Institute of Pharmacy also run webinars that are run by peer support pharmacists. I've done some in that role. Other peer support pharmacists also facilitate those. And I also run a program called LEAD, which is, again, it's a mastermind group. So we get involved in really leveraging peer learning and doing exercises. And again, that's from home. So they're in effect online workshops rather than online presentations. The benefits, obviously, are you don't need to travel. So for me, I live an hour from Cork and an hour from Waterford. To go to a live event, I'm going to be in the car an absolute minimum of 2 hours. Right. Whereas if I can do something from home, that means that I have 2 extra hours. You can do live courses, you can do online courses, you can attend recorded courses, or you can find learning in some other way. So, for example, you could attend a conference. Right. That isn't a course per se, it's live learning, it's networking. You could be attending networking meetings. You'd be a membership of a business community and learn about aspects of best practice in another business that you can transfer into your business that will support patient safety or your business development or grow your business. Absolutely. So you can use they can be pharmacy magazines, they can be other magazines. You can read articles, you can do research, you can do Google searches. You can, at all of the pharmacy magazines in Ireland, the IPU Review, the Irish Pharmacy News and the Irish Pharmacist all have articles each month that would be both business focused, non-clinical CPD focused and clinical CPD focused. So that could be a methodology. For example, I would write an article in the Irish Pharmacy News each month and they'd be focused on the business and management non-clinical core competencies. CSAT stands for Core Competency Self-Assessment Tool. Each of us must and this is a legal requirement, we must self-assess our own competency as a pharmacist against the core competency framework for pharmacists once a year minimum, and we must use the CSAT tool within the e-portfolio to do that.